Welcome to this channel. My name is Chaplain Kelly, and I'm glad you came back to this session we're calling Coaching Through Losses. Session 1, of course, was just an introduction. We talked about how the difference really between coaching and counseling. Counseling, of course, is therapeutic and kind of gets into your past and that. But coaching, specifically for this session, we're going to go from a loss, your loss, to adjustment to that loss, a loss adjustment. And my role will be to help coach you through that process. We're going to do it in about 5 sessions, maybe 6. And I'll have some homework along the way for you, just to help you move. We realize that coaching involves some knowledge and also some skills or techniques or tools. Today's session is about loss. Well, of course, if you're like most of us, myself included, when I think of a loss, I think of death. Specifically, a death of a loved one. Rightly so. It's really the ultimate loss. And if some of you out there right now have experienced that recently especially, or maybe even in the past and it just hasn't gone away, my heart goes out to you. Not just as a chaplain who's walked many people through the death of their loved ones, but I've had my own experiences with loss through death. Many friends, relatives, loved ones, my mother, and in fact, my wife and I lost our 7-year-old daughter, and it was very painful. So my heart goes out to you. But you know, there's other losses as well. You guys all know that. And some of those bring such a sting, and we cover them up so well that we don't realize that we're struggling with it. Let's identify some of those losses today, shall we? You think about, what are some other losses? How about your job? Of course, there's people experiencing that right now with the coronavirus thing going on, right? There's some people who don't even know if they're going to have their job back. They're experiencing the loss of their job. How about relationships? Divorce, separation, just a breakup. Those are losses that really bring a sting to people. How about the loss of a dream? Hopes and dreams. Something you've been depending on for so long is washed away by whatever reason. How about money? Any material thing. Those are really, they're losses. We don't like to think of it because I'm not materialistic. But we hold on to things like cars and houses and money. And when they are no longer there, it's a loss to us. And on it goes. You know, part of your homework this week is going to be to identify some losses that you want to work on and get coached through. But I want to tell you, before you do that, don't just shut the video off, because we're going to talk about 2 different kinds of losses, and they're both significant. What I just mentioned were really primary losses, jobs and relationships and so forth. But quite often, the sting comes from what I'm going to call the secondary losses. Let me give you an example. I think of a young guy I was working with and walking with through his loss. He had a loss of a job. It was sudden and it surprised him. And he was grieving it, I thought. I soon found out it wasn't really the job that he was grieving. His wife made more income than he did. It was his identity. He didn't know who he was without his job. That's the secondary loss. Can you identify with that at all? How about this? I remember somebody, they'd lost their mother. Now that's, of course, a sad thing. They're through death. But this was not a sudden thing. It was expected. She lived a full life. And a few years later, she's still, well, actually a year later, she's still grieving her mom. And I said, is it your mom you're grieving? I mean, there was a memorial service, there was closure. And you know what it was? The secondary loss was a Friday phone call. She goes, I missed the phone call. The phone call. What is it about that? It was that connection. That need for significance and security and so forth. The secondary losses often are what we are struggling with. Your homework for this week. or whatever, however long the time period is till our next session, is to identify a loss that you want to really work on while in our sessions. You may need to take a notepad and write them down, or talk to a friend, or just brainstorm. Identify the loss. It may be a primary loss, it may be a secondary loss, something different than what you thought it was. Think about it. The other thing is to take a look at this verse, Psalm 139. And it just says this, 139:23. Search me, O God, and know my heart. Test me and know my anxious thoughts. I want you to look at that because sometimes we think we know what those losses are. But I want you to pause long enough and ask God to search your heart. What is it that really is stuck in there that you want to work on? You won't regret doing that because you're not going to stay there. The goal is to move you from there to a wholeness, to a loss adjustment. Remember that. It may be something from your childhood. It may be something that came up recently, last week, or maybe today. But there's something that you're stuck in that is identified as a loss. I will continue to pray for you, even though I don't know you and I won't see you, kind of thing. But I'll pray for you because it's important. This topic is very important. God bless you. I look forward to seeing you again on session number 3.